Okay, everyone, welcome to another session for the New Jersey Student Climate Challenge. Today we have one called Idling, What's the Problem? With Gabrielle Pintaro from the NJDEP, and that's the Bureau of Mobile Sources. So we're really excited to have Gabby here. Before we get into Gabby's presentation, we are going to just talk a little bit about the challenge itself. So my name is Joanna Contarino. I'm a program assistant with Sustainable Jersey, and this New Jersey Student Climate Challenge is hosted by Sustainable Jersey and the Drumthwacket Foundation. And then that's with generous support by Atlantic City Electric and Exelon. The challenge itself is open to students in grades 6 through 12. Public schools in New Jersey are eligible. So we have teams of 2 to 12 students. Just to keep it manageable for teachers, it just makes a lot more sense for it to be smaller groups. And students will be tasked with completing a school or community project that addresses the human causes of climate change or the impacts that it has on the environment. And in order for students to show us the great work that they're going to be doing, they will produce a digital story video about their project. And we will have, we do have right now up on our YouTube playlist, a wonderful webinar on how to produce that digital story. So you'll be able to get that through our website, and all the other educational sessions that we had in the past would be on that same playlist. This right here is just a timeline of how things are going to move along. So we're in the midst and kind of in the final ends of February and all the great educational sessions that we are having. And then, the thing to focus on next is the submission deadline, which is April 1st. And then after those are, reviewed and judged and all that kind of stuff, we will announce the finalists in May. And the award ceremony will be in June at the Drumthwacket House, and that's hosted by the governor and the first lady. And down here on the bottom, you'll see the prize amounts, and these are going to be grants that will be given to your schools, either to build on the project that you already, have done for the challenge, or to kind of be more sustainable, or to address climate change on your campus in another way. So that's a little bit about the challenge. Now we're going to pass it over to Gabby so we can get into anti-idling. So give me one moment to switch presentations. All right, that's all.
Thank you, Joanna. All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Gabby, and I'm an environmental specialist at the Department of Environmental Protection. I'm in the Division of Air Quality, more specifically the Bureau of Mobile Sources. Here in the Bureau of Mobile Sources, or BMS, as we like to call it, we focus on pollution coming specifically from moving vehicles and equipment. So tonight's presentation is going to focus on vehicle idling, a surprisingly big problem all around the world. Next slide, please. So to begin the presentation, we are going to look at all the sources of greenhouse gas emissions in our home state, New Jersey. Does anything stick out to you? Yeah, that huge portion at the top of this graph is transportation, which is responsible for almost half of all greenhouse gas emissions in the state. That is the sole reason we are so passionate about cutting our transportation pollution down as much as possible. Next slide, please. So moving on to our main topic of tonight's presentation, idling. Why is this such a big deal? Well, if that previous slide didn't do it for you, I'll go into some detail here. Air pollution, specifically from cars, is really dangerous. It can cause asthma attacks, wheezing, coughing, lung cancer, and even premature death. To put all this into perspective, the average American will idle their vehicle for over 16 minutes a day. That is putting about 40,000 tons of carbon monoxide into the air. So that's about 3 times as heavy as the Brooklyn Bridge. That's insane to me. And we are breathing all of that toxic air in. Not to mention children, school age, elementary, middle school children are all at most risk to all this toxic pollution, since unfortunately they're at tailpipe level. They're still growing. They're obviously, smaller than us adults or older people. So they're right at tailpipe level, and they can be breathing all of that soot in. Next slide, please. So not only is idling bad for your overall health, but it's illegal too. Current regulations limit engine idling for both diesel and gasoline vehicles to 3 minutes with limited exceptions. If a DEP enforcement officer, a county environmental health officer, or a local police officer catches you idling for more than 3 minutes, you can get up to a $250 fine just for the first offense. Next slide, please. So there are so many myths and just plain old outdated information when it comes to cars today. Many of us believe that constantly restarting your car over and over again can be bad for its engine health. Well, according to Argonne National Laboratory, idling for just 10 seconds uses more fuel and emits more CO2 than just engine restarting. You also don't need to warm up your car for engine health either. That was back when carbureted engines dominated the roads. You rarely see those now. And this slide as well has a lot other facts, statistics, and important documents. And I can always share this with everybody after the presentation so they could see some of this stuff too that I didn't mention. Next slide, please. So I get a lot of questions and a lot of confusion around idling. People want to know, when can I idle a vehicle? Of course, there are certain situations when idling is allowed. For example, when passengers are boarding a bus, or if an ambulance is treating a patient, or just waiting in traffic. I'm not expecting you to turn off your car while you're sitting in traffic, at 9 a.m. going into, work or something. There's medical exemptions as well. I just encourage everyone to become familiar with the idling laws and the exemptions. Next slide, please. So what does everybody get out of stopping their cars after 3 minutes? Of course, not idling will create cleaner air for everyone to breathe, but it will also save you a lot of money. Think about this. If you idle for 1 hour, all right, you are losing almost 1 gallon of gas in that hour. Now, gas is not cheap right now. Okay, so that 1 gallon of gas cost you, last time I saw at Wawa, it was like $3.60-ish, maybe even more. So that $3.60 would be much better if it was spent on, say, like a dessert, maybe a chocolate lava cake, rather than just burning away into the air. Now, imagine stopping your idling car for an entire year. All right, just imagine what you could spend all that extra money on. Maybe some Chick-fil-A sandwiches, maybe a season pass to Six Flags. My point is idling costs you a lot of money in the long run. Next slide, please. So plain and simple, what can you do? All right, seems simple enough. Turn off your car after 3 minutes, whether you're sitting in a parking lot, waiting for a friend, picking up food. A lot of times I see people, not as much anymore, but waiting in line for, say, a COVID test. If you're not moving and you're not going to be moving for a while, just turn it off. It's not a big deal. If it's hot out, roll down the windows. If it's chilly out, bundle up. I keep a Snuggie in my car sometimes because I get chilly. So I highly suggest just turning it off. Save some money, put it to good use. So there's other things you can do too. You can go into the restaurant instead of the drive-through, carpool with your friends if you're all going to the same place, maybe walk or bike to destinations close by, and if it's safe. There's a lot of things that you can do to kind of break the habit of leaving your car on, or just limit those situations that you would be in where you would idle your vehicle. So if there's anything that I missed in this, maybe think about what else you could do besides this list that you can do to reduce your carbon footprint when it comes to driving. And of course, you can drop those in the chat. Next slide, please. So I encourage all of you to visit our website, have your schools, organizations, churches, clubs sign our No Idle pledge and order no idle signs to place around the locations. We also have amazing promotional and outreach materials, such as ice scrapers, hand warmers, even personal fans. So when I was looking at ordering all these things, you know, you want them to make sense. You know, you want to think of things like, all right, why are people idling? They're cold or they're hot. You know, their car is frosted up. They need to warm it up to get the ice off their car. I know that happens to me. You know, I leave for work so early in the morning and I'm like, I don't have time to sit there, idle my car, wait for everything to defrost. All right. So I ordered things like hot hands and the ice scraper, you know, and you can use that ice scraper. And I'm this person, and I know some of you are this person as well, where you just kind of scrape off the little square where you look through. And then you're just like, I'm just going to drive and this is just going to melt off and we're going to go with it. You know, obviously be safe, you know, but the fastest way to warm up your car and get rid of that ice is to start driving it. So scrape off as much as you can and keep moving. And the same thing with the air conditioner, right? So you're going to want to roll down those windows and you're going to want to get moving so that air can start circulating through your car and you get the hot, stagnant air out of there. Now, I know you guys have some good hacks out there to keep your car from getting frosty. I've seen some on TikTok before. So if you guys are on social media, there's always, you know, crazy hacks on how to do things or make things in your life just easier. And I've definitely seen some pretty creative ones just on social media. So of course, if you have any of those or know of any of them, please drop them in the chat. All right. And then the most important thing you can do to stop idling is educate and instill the healthy habits of just turning off your car after 3 minutes. You know, most of us are relatively new drivers, especially my students out there who are just learning how to drive or just got their licenses. Now is the time to instill these healthy habits, right? If you know, all right, 3 minutes, done, I'm shutting off my car. You know, it's just instilled in you, you know what you have to do, and you'll just keep doing that throughout your time, you know, driving a vehicle. All right, next slide. So thank you again for having me present at the New Jersey Student Climate Challenge. Please give us a follow on Instagram at DriveCleanNJ. And don't be scared to reach out to us through the contact information on this last slide. I'm definitely available if you want to see the outreach materials we have. Head over to stopthesoot.org and actually put some photos up of some of the stuff. You know, and you can always send me an email and we can send you out some outreach materials to give out. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Gabby. I think we had a few questions in the chat come up, so I'm just going to look. I did see something, and you mentioned that students could order some of these like promotional materials and outreach materials to like give out on campus and that type of thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have the mock tickets, which are kind of like a joke thing, you know, just saying like you could get a ticket from idling. Those are easy to hand out. There's brochures. I think the biggest thing, and I saw somebody put in the chat that they didn't even realize that it was illegal, you know, and a lot of times the biggest thing here is just, you know, the lack of education on idling and what the laws and the regulations are. But yeah, definitely they can reach out, they can request certain materials. I mail them out, you know, they can give them out at events, fairs, whatever they'd like to.
It's amazing. That's a really great resource. I think it was funny for me because I didn't realize that thing about running the car so that because your engine needs it and all that kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
feel like I get that like all the time from like coworkers at my previous
Yeah.
job. They're like, you have to run your car. And I'm like, I don't know if I
You
have
don't.
to.
Yeah. The new technology is totally
Yes.
fine. The biggest one for me, I think, was, and I was a shock. It was a shock to me when I found this out when I was doing research on idling, was stopping and starting your car really is not bad for it. You know, your car, newer cars can
Yeah.
handle these things. They can do these things, and it actually, you know, creates more pollution just leaving your car going than stopping and starting it over and over again. So
Wow.
it's not going to damage your car. You don't have a limit on how many times you could shut off and turn on your car. Some of the newer cars have the stop start technology where if they're sitting at a light for a long time, their engine will stop and then they'll pop back on. So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, my car does that actually. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah, you don't
hybrid,
realize
so
it.
yeah. But when I first got it, it kind of shocked me.
Yep,
But we have a question of why wait even 3 minutes, which is an interesting.
absolutely. I think if you could shut it off in less than 3 minutes, that would be perfect. But I think just the general threshold is just a flat 3 minutes. We kind of like to say turn the key after three. It's like a nice way to remember that. You know, of course, definitely turn it off, you know, but don't wait until 3 minutes. But if that's a way you can remember it, you know, or if you're just running in to grab something or somebody's running into Wawa to grab you a soda real quick, you know, say keep it under 3 minutes. Let's go, let's go.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think another thing that's really interesting that Andrea put in the chat is that the 16-minute average might be higher these days just because
Oh,
of all of
absolutely.
the pickup lines and drive up store
Yes.
pickups and that type of thing. Do you have any new data on that, or do you know any other information on
I
that?
haven't seen any new data myself, but I've definitely brought it up plenty of times during the pandemic when
Mhm.
things were strictly, you know, when we were quarantined and we weren't leaving our vehicles and we were only doing pickup, we were only doing drive through. Um, you know, the complaints were coming in. People were sitting there just running their cars, waiting for COVID tests or waiting to go in to be tested, or, you know, it was excessive. Um, and now of course it's calmed down a lot, you know, these things, thankfully, you know, people aren't waiting in these 3-hour lines to get COVID tested via car. But it definitely, even though there were less cars on the road driving because we were all home,
Mhm.
there were still a lot of cars out sitting in parking lots, sitting in urgent cares, um, you know, idling, maybe not actively driving,
Yeah.
but idling. So I haven't dived into any new data just yet, but I know it's there.
Yeah, and that's also really interesting too, because the whole thing during the pandemic was like, this is a good thing for the planet because like we're have less activity, right? But then if we're
Yeah.
all out there idling, maybe it's not so
Yeah, like it was
good.
isolated to certain areas. Like, yeah, maybe, you
Mhm.
know, the major highways, all the air pollution normally around them, or the ports or something like that. It's not as bad. Maybe some busy cities, you're not getting as much smog and soot, but drive past your local urgent care, you know, and it's like, whoa, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting concept.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so if anyone is considering an anti-idling project for the climate challenge, please let us know in the chat. Also, please let us know if you have any questions for Gabby while she's still on. Oh, we have one right now. So do you have any examples of student groups or schools that have been able to host awareness campaigns around anti-idling?
So I have not personally, since I've only unfortunately been at the DP for 3 years and two of them were a pandemic.
Mm.
But we actually are working on creating a new awareness campaign. And I've been to a couple webinars where different states will kind of utilize the younger generations, like the non-drivers, you know, the children, just because I did mention, you know, kids are the most susceptible to, you know, vehicle pollution. Unfortunately, they're right at tailpipe length. Their lungs are still developing, you know, they breathe in more air per body mass per minute than adults. So, you know, the effects on children are very great. So we definitely want to utilize, elementary and middle school children and programs there to kind of raise awareness to, say, their parents, their teachers. I mean, Joanna, you mentioned like the pickup lines at some of these schools, we're idling in places where there's very susceptible individuals, and it's completely preventable.
Yeah, that's a really great point. We have one question about, so are the New Jersey walls are there other states that have walls that are similar to New Jersey?
Yeah, I would think, I know, and I always get so jealous about this one. New York has the Billy Doesn't Idle campaign, and they use Billy Idol, which, I mean, like, I'm just,
Very
I think,
cool.
at that age where I know who Billy Idol is. I don't think like the younger kids know who Billy Idol is, but I was like, man, they got Billy Idol. So I know New York is very stringent. They actually have a policy where citizens can report commercial idling, and for whatever they are ticketed. So say the offender, whoever is idling, whatever they're ticketed, the citizen can get a chunk of that. They essentially get paid to report illegal idling.
Wow.
Yeah, so I
That's a
thought that
great
was
incentive
insane. And it's on
program.
commercial vehicles. Because at first I was like,
Okay, yeah,
on
not on
each
your
other?
neighbor.
Like, that's a little, I don't know. Like, I was kind of hesitant, but
Yeah.
it's strictly on, say, like a big truck sitting in a parking lot unloading things, and it's been sitting there for hours and things like that.
Yeah, that's a great
So I
point.
know theirs is pretty advanced, but we can understand because that's, New York. There's a lot going on there,
Oh
just
yeah,
like New Jersey.
definitely. So we got a few links in the chat. We have, if you don't know who Billy Idol is, we have his Wikipedia page. And Renee is putting a great reminder that we have anti-idling actions in both our Sustainable Jersey for Schools program and the municipal program. So she put the website links there, and you'll find on the website under actions, you can kind of view that. So if your school or town is looking to get certified, you can definitely do a project on that. I'm going to share my screen and just show, a few things that are coming up. Please, while I'm doing this, if there's anything else that you have questions for, you can do so in the chat. Okay, so we have only 3 educational sessions for students left in this great slot of programs that we had. So you can see all the ones that we had in the past have recording here, because we do have them all on the website and on our YouTube playlist. So you can, if you're wanting to do a project on energy saving strategies at your school, you can watch a whole recording on it and get a lot of like tips and tricks. Same thing for any of these other great, topics. And we have 2 more professional development sessions for teachers. So this week, I believe that's Thursday, integrating climate change into your curricula. So, if you're a teacher and you're interested in integrating climate change, it's a mandate now, right? You can, join us on Thursday, I believe, at 4. So here's where you'll have all of the wonderful resources that we offer on our website. We have that bit.ly link that someone will put in the chat very soon, but this can all be found on that page on the website. We have a teacher guide that goes really into depth on how to support your students in completing the project. We also have a student guide, which focuses more on the project itself, like creation of it, coming up with topics, ideas, and a little bit about the digital story, I believe. And then we have some more, technical things like the official rules and consent and release forms. And be sure to check out the brochure, which gives a rundown of how the climate challenge works. And you can, feel free to share that with anyone that you think might be interested in joining. And just a great reminder for teachers, if you haven't already, please register for the challenge, and you can find the registration link at that, bit.ly link as well. When you register, that doesn't mean that you have to do a project, but we'd like you to, of course, but being registered means that you'll get all of these wonderful updates when we're having new sessions. If you are interested in doing a project, you'll get like any rule changes or anything like that. And this slide just gives a rundown of how you can connect with us. So we have all of our social links for Sustainable Jersey listed here. We have an email address that's specifically for this project. So if you want to reach me or Renee or Andrea about a specific question, you can definitely email us at njstudentclimatechallenge@sustainablejersey.com. If you're posting anything about the challenge, feel free to use our hashtag on social media, just hashtag NJStudentClimateChallenge. And I'm going to see what's going on in the chat, see if we have anything else to discuss here. Ooh. Oh, our town is hosting, okay. Yes, and like Andrea is saying, there's definitely a lot of connections for, decreasing fossil fuel burning. So anti-idling can have a huge impact on climate change. So that's very
Absolutely. Absolutely.
great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I hope to see you at some of our upcoming sessions. And thank you, Gabby, for joining us. It was a lot of really great information, and I hope to see some students do projects based on this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Enjoy the night, everyone.